Welcome to lesson 8.2. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the last two kinds of transformations to our sine and cosine wave. So we have two new vocabulary words. That is phase shift and vertical shift. Now, comparing these to last time, when we did amplitude and period, that stretched the graph up and down or stretched the graph side to side. It didn't actually move the graph, it was just stretching it from where it was. A shift is a physical move. So we pick up the whole graph and move it up. Pick up the whole graph and move it to the side. That's a phase shift and a vertical shift. Now, vertical shift, pretty obviously, vertical is going to move the graph up or down. Your phase shift is going to move the graph side to side. And those are our two kind of shifts that we talk about. Now, to help you get this down, I'm going to create a kind of table to help you understand all of this stuff. And I want you guys to write this in your notes. So we have this table here. In the top, I'm going to put what we learned last time. Our amplitude and our period. Now, both of these, let me try this again. So our amplitude, if you remember from last time, our amplitude was always written outside the sine. So, for example, right there, that number was our amplitude. It is always outside the sine or cosine. Whereas our period was always written inside the sine or cosine, or inside the parentheses. So amplitude was outside, period was inside. In addition to that, something we talked about in our last lesson is that amplitude and period are always multiplied to things. So, for example, down here, that amplitude number is multiplied to the cosine. This 3 would be our period number because it's inside the cosine and it's multiplied to the x. So amplitude and period are always being multiplied. Now let's talk about our two new ones, vertical shift and phase shift. The first thing you need to know is both of these new ones are adding or subtracting. So if you are ever adding a number or subtracting a number, that is a phase shift or a vertical shift. So for example, right here, plus 2, minus pi thirds, minus 5, plus 3.4. All of those adding and subtracting things, those are vertical shifts and phase shifts. Your vertical shift is always going to be adding or subtracting outside your sine or cosine. So outside of the parentheses. Your phase shift will always be adding or subtracting inside the sine or cosine, inside the parentheses. And that's how we're going to keep track of these. Now we also need to do one other thing. We need to list what direction adding and subtracting is. So first off, vertical shift, that's up and down. So we would think if we're adding something, that's going to move our graph up. If we're subtracting something, that's going to move our graph down. And that's totally right. For a vertical shift, up, adding means up, subtracting means down. Now let's come to our phase shift. Phase shift is moving it side to side, left to right. So if you think about phase shift left to right, you can kind of imagine it like a number line. We would think that positive on the number line would move to the right. That's actually wrong. Phase shift is really weird in that it's against your intuition. It's opposite what you think it should be. So positive on the inside phase shift is actually to the left, whereas negative on the inside phase shift is actually to the right, which is kind of counterintuitive, but that's how it is. So this table right here, that will be the absolute key to everything that we do for this lesson in 8.2. So make sure you have that in your notes. In the next video, we'll actually apply this table to a problem to see what it looks like.